Hello and welcome to The Hunted Sky. If you're an old listener, hello again. Welcome back to the re-recordings with new and improved audio quality. For anyone just now starting, hi, I'm Gabby. And this little project I'm testing out. Gonna be frank about it up front, the posting schedule is really sporadic, and the quality of the writing isn't going to be amazing just yet. Essentially, I'm working on the rough draft of a novel in my spare time, and to get myself to continue working on it, I'm recording it as I go. So every chapter or so I'll stop, fire up Audacity, and record what I've written. This means there will be plot holes, continuity errors, and all the lovely little mistakes that go with a rough draft. Think of it as a beta test for the real thing. Those are popular right now, yeah? Anyway, I just want to say thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. There's a few plugs at the tail end of the episode for cool things, so you should give those a listen as well. And so we go to the first episode of The Hunted Sky. Grace slept fitfully, tossing and turning, her hands itching to be on her runner's throttle again. She missed the wind whipping around her and the feel of the drop as she dove. She hated sleeping in her bed, but Bookkeeper had told her she wasn't allowed to sleep in her cockpit anymore. She hated being in the ship. Even though it was flying, it just didn't feel the same. She couldn't control where it went, how high, how fast. She hated being confined to the crowded alleys or to her small quarters. Finally, she gave up trying to sleep and got out of her small bed. She showered, slipped into her uniform, and started calibrating her watcher to the city's new position and stared at the blackness out of the port window, trying to discern clouds from sky. The girl started, looking around her cabin quickly. Apparently, she'd fallen back asleep. The sky was turning a dull blue, which would mean, yes, there it was. The small bell above her bed rang, and a pneumatic tube made a soft hiss as her orders for the day were delivered to her. Nearly tearing the doors from its hinge, she pulled the paper out of the tube and checked what she'd be doing for the day. Her eyes lit up as she read, a 90-mile scouting trip north of the city? She'd never been allowed to go that far before. Maybe the bookkeeper was finally starting to trust her. "All right, just wait, Lenora. We're going to have some fun today." She tore out of her room, slamming her door behind her. As quickly as she could, she made her way past the other workers heading to do their chores, dodging around farmers carrying loads of grain or manure, sprinting past the groups of beggars who'd managed to slip onto her deck from the lower levels, through the steadily growing throngs of people as each received their tasks for the day and set about them. "Grace, how many times have I told you to slow down? You're gonna hurt someone," called Mrs. Candon, the city's only pig farmer. "Don't worry about it, Mrs. C. I'll be fine. Save some bacon and chop for me this evening, yeah? I'm gonna need it. I've got a long flight today," Grace called back as she continued down the alley towards the elevators. "All right, child. Be careful out there today, and slow down." She nodded even though she knew she was far from the woman's eyesight. Today was her first long scout mission. Today was the day she might finally be off probation. Why the hell would she slow down now? The redhead stopped and waited for the elevator to make its pass at her floor, tapping her foot impatiently. "Why the hell is it always late? Don't tell me someone fell in again," she grumbled. Eventually, the door slid open, and she crammed herself into the already packed compartment. "Morning, Miss H. Mr. J. How are you?" she asked the man and woman she'd lodged herself between. Neither replied, only grunted uncomfortably, the woman yelping when Grace accidentally shoved her shoulder into her chest. "Sorry. I'm only going up 3 levels. I'll be out of here in no time. Promise." The lift slowly made its way up, straining under the weight of the dozen or so passengers on it, eventually reaching the hangar. Grace pried herself from the elevator and waved at them before dashing off towards the hangar. "Hey, bookkeeper, you're gonna let me actually fly today, finally?" She grinned up at the dark-haired man behind the desk. He stared at her a moment longer before cracking a warm smile. "And be careful out there, Ace. Maybe a few runs like this and you'll be a real pilot." She returned the smile and rolled her eyes. "You know I'm already the best pilot this city has ever seen." He beamed at her. "Yes, well, that may or may not be true, but you know the rules." Grace huffed and folded her arms. "You know I don't buy into that crap book. The hell do I have to?" His smile turned concerned and he sighed. "You know that I can't let you leave until you say it." She stamped her foot and stared at him a moment, trying to get the man to back down, knowing that he wouldn't. "Fine." The pilot closed her eyes, doing her best to remember the prayer that all pilots said before leaving the city. "Oh, Mist Mother, guide us through each day and night. Protect us from the fingers of the old world. Let all those who travel in your realm return safely. Teach the young your love and wrath, and shield us from those who lurk below. Shroud us in your cloak from things that wish us harm, and take our departed into your embrace. O Mist Mother, keep us through another day." There, we okay? "Yes." "All right, I'll see you later, book." As soon as she was done, she whirled around and sprinted to the hangar to her ship. "Lenora, my love, I'm home." She climbed into the cockpit and gave a sigh of relief. Everything felt right again. "Let's go have some fun, yeah?" She fired up the takeoff engine, black smoke belching from the tailpipes of the ship. "It's all right, sweetheart. Don't rush it." The engine knocked a few times before settling into a steady thrum. Small takeoff propellers spun up and Grace taxied the ship to the runway. Not another runner in sight. She flipped on her lights and warmed up the vapor engine and maglev system. "Let's go!" She punched it, the ship accelerating from 0 to 35 knots before doing a half dive, half fall off the edge of the runway. Grace cut the takeoff engine and closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind whip around her. She smiled and took a deep breath of fresh air, something she hadn't done in days, enjoying her hair being blown around behind her and the feeling of weightlessness. After another few seconds of freefall, she reluctantly engaged the canopy. It slid over the cockpit and sealed her away from the air again, as Lenore plowed into the first mass of water vapor. Grace engaged the secondary engine and pulled out of the dive. "Good job, sweetie. I'll make sure to treat you real nice this week. How about some fresh grease and new filters?" She patted the side of the cockpit affectionately. The runner sucked in as much vapor as it could get from the cloud that they were in and fired, breaking down the water into hydrogen and oxygen, burning them as fuel. The small ship climbed quickly, up and over the top of the city ship. Grace tilted the runner until it hung upside down above her home. She smiled, looking down at her city, floating high above the cloud wall. She did a quick flyby, waving at the control tower, and sped north at a blistering 30 knots, relishing every second of the acceleration. She turned in lazy loops and rolls, giggling at the feeling. Lenora spluttered for a moment at one point, signifying she was tired of being upside down. All right, I'll stop, love. Sorry, it's just been too long since we've been out." She leveled out and pushed the throttle to its maximum, heading towards her scouting point. Sometime later, she could see something rising from the mist, a dark shape in the distance. "Hey girl, wanna go see what it is? Maybe it's one of those mountain things that Book always said to watch out for. I mean, it's her job, isn't it? Wouldn't want the city to hit one?" She tilted the controls and accelerated toward the shape. As she got closer, she realized just how big it was. Jagged pieces of something jutted from the mist, looking almost like a hand clawing its way upward. Grace flew closer, circling it, looking down at the white-gray wall below, wondering just what was down there and where this thing had come from. Maybe it was an old city that had sunk and somehow gotten turned into whatever this thing was? She continued staring at the shape and the rolling wall under her, wondering just how far down it went. She'd always been told that there was nothing but water down there now, that something had flooded the world hundreds of years ago and the only people left lived in the cities, and that the mist had covered everything after. But if something like this was tall enough to reach above the mist, what else was down there? She shook off the thought. That wasn't her job. She checked her position and marked it on her map. Turning back to her original destination, she set her autopilot and leaned back, deciding to finally catch a few comfortable hours of sleep. "You're doing well, Lenora. Good girl." As the runner approached the destination, Grace's alarm sounded and she jolted upright, mashing the button to silence the alarm. The redhead looked around. "Been drifting a little bit, love?" She was lower than she would have liked, surrounded by mist. She got her bearings and pulled the runner into a steep climb, up and out of the cloud bank. Patting the console, she said, "What are you doing, honey? You know we can't go down there." The runner bucked and sputtered, the engine dying for a moment, and the scout ship started to fall before powering back on. "You all right, sweetheart? You've never done something like that before." An alarm sounded, one she'd never heard before. She scanned her monitors, looking for the source. Oh, Mist Mother. There wasn't enough time to even begin evading as a wire-guided rocket slammed into Lenora's tail, sending the craft spinning. Grace struggled against it, trying to pull out of the spinning dive. A rocket that small, wire-guided, had to be a runner as well, but where? Why the hell was it shooting at her? She righted Lenora and pulled back up, skimming the wall of the mist to give her a boost as she pulled the throttle all the way. She had to get away, had to find a city to land and make repairs, but she had no idea where the nearest city was, let alone if it was friendly. Lenora shuddered under the impact of something. Grace tried to look, but her head was slammed against the instrument panel as the runner was pulled downward, into the mist again. No. Come on, Lenora, you can do it, come on. Grace's heart was like a machine gun as she struggled against whatever had grabbed her ship. Lenora pulled, but whatever had her was too much. Slowly, she sank down further into the mist until Grace could only see the slight glow from the runner's engine. There was another shudder, and suddenly all movement stopped. Lenora's engine sputtered a few times and died, leaving Grace in total darkness and silence. As her heart slowed, she began to feel the low thrum of ship's engines under her. She immediately knew it was a frigate with a non-standard engine. There was no way that this was an enemy city. Lenora didn't fly colors or carry an insignia. That meant pirates. She started digging for her knife, but the sheath was empty. The bookkeeper must have done inspections and found it. Mother damn him, she hissed, her teeth clenched. Light poured into her cockpit, blinding her for a moment. Hey, this one's lively, boss. Nice pilot, too. A man's voice called out above her. His speech was slightly slurred, whether from booze or something else, Grace couldn't tell. The ship is still in good enough condition. Don't make us damage it anymore. Come out. A cold female voice boomed at her. Grace considered her options. Either they tear the canopy off, probably destroying Lenora in the process, and they kill her, or she gets out willingly and they kill her, but at least Lenora would be left in one piece. She took a deep breath and slowly pulled the canopy release, mumbling the Mist Mother's prayer under her breath. Immediately, there were 3 rifle barrels pointed at her head and a knife inches from her throat. Grace gulped and looked down the blade at the woman holding the impressively large knife. Hi. Out. The woman's voice was gruff but quiet. She was tall, far taller than Grace. Her skin was darker, too, almost the same color of Grace's leather saddlebag. The right side of her head was covered in a horrible scar, and her right ear was missing. The other half was covered by tightly braided cornrows. More scars crisscrossed their way down the sides of her face and neck, disappearing into her gray uniform that had seen far better days. Yes, ma'am. As Grace undid the straps and climbed out, she asked, I take it you don't want to get blood in her cockpit? 2 of the men levering rifles at her looked at each other, one raising an eyebrow. Grace stood next to Lenora, hands in the air, scanning their faces. Someone on the catwalk above them let out a chuckle, and the woman glared at Grace. Where are you from, and why are you here? Why did she care? So they'd know where to send her body to? I'm from the left brig. I was just sent out to scout ahead and see if the city would run into any, trouble. Grace saw a couple of the rifles lower. Even the woman let her knife drop to her side. She don't look like a bounty hunter, Captain. She's just a girl, said a man to her right. Now Grace scanned the hangar as much as she could and realized just how much danger she was actually in. At least 3 dozen pirates were surrounding her, most with rifles or pistols aimed directly at her. Her heart was a jackhammer. I'm just a scout. Please, I didn't even know you were here. Please. Tears started welling in her eyes. The captain gave a long sigh. So damn you. Why couldn't you have been a damn bounty hunter? The woman scratched her forehead. Jessup? Yes, ma'am. A pudgy man to Grace's right, holding a blunderbuss, snapped to attention. Take her to the brig and make sure she's got food and something to drink. The captain thought for a moment. Give her some decent bedding, too. I've got to figure out what we're going to do. The man nodded and took hold of Grace's arm. Come on, girlie. Don't put up a fuss. Ain't no one going to hurt you. Just come with me. Grace wiped at her eyes and nodded, letting the man lead her off, down the hall towards the lower decks of the ship. Jessup stepped out of the cell after handing the girl the cleanest blanket he could find and locked it. He lingered a few moments. We ain't bad, I promise. Just don't want nothing to do with the cities or the war. We ain't gonna kill you. We ain't like that. Anyway, I got to get back to the captain. I'll have someone bring more food to you this evening. The girl refused to look at him. She hugged her knees and stared at the floor. He sighed. All right. Try to get some rest. I know this ain't easy on you. He trudged up the stairs, back up to the bridge. He stood at attention next to the captain. Ma'am, she's down there locked up tight. Did like you asked, gave her food and a good blanket. Captain dismissed him with a wave. Good. I'll go down and talk to her once we're home. Full stop. Let her drift the rest of the way in, the captain called to her bridge. The first mate repeated her order. Full stop. Drift to dock. She cringed. She liked the man. He was a good first mate, but sometimes she couldn't stand the sound of his voice. They heard me already, Gerald. He stiffened and replied, Yes, ma'am. I'm going to check the prisoner. You have the bridge. The captain stood and stretched, heading for the elevator. There was a muffled but audible groan from the bridge crew. Gerald smiled. "Yes, ma'am." When she came to the bridge door, she waved off the guard. "I'll watch her. Go get a drink or something. Not like she can go anywhere anyway." Are you sure, ma'am?" Nodding, she said, "Yeah, go have some fun." The man saluted and scurried off. The captain unlatched the heavy iron door and began turning the wheel to open it. As it swung open, she said, "Hey, girl, you awake?" Grace heard the clatter of the door being opened and forced herself to be completely still. If they thought she was sleeping, maybe they'd leave her alone, she thought. "Hey, girl, you awake?" She heard the scuffle of someone pulling a chair across the room and sitting down near her. "I know you're awake. You ain't fooling no one." The redhead cracked one eye open and looked at the visitor. It was the woman from before, the captain. "Hi." The woman smirked a little. "Good. Now sit up, let's talk." She did as she was told, sitting up in the bed, pulling herself as far back from the woman as she could. Are you gonna kill me?" The captain burst out laughing. After a moment, she composed herself, tears in her eyes. "I already told you we wasn't, girl." Grace let herself relax a little, but she still feared the worst. "Then what are you gonna do to me? Where are we going?" The captain tapped her foot. "I don't know what we're gonna do with you yet. Wasn't expecting you when we pulled your ship in. Thought you were another damn bounty hunter after us. As for where we're going, well, we're going home." "Home? You have a home ship?" Grace's eyes lit up. Even in this terrifying situation, the girl's curiosity and love of ships peeked through. The captain cocked an eyebrow. "Ship? Fuck no. I ain't never gonna be on another one of those madhouses again. We got our own problems down here, but I'd take them any day over the shit that goes on up there." "Down here?" The captain eyed her for a long moment, then shook her head. "I've got to figure out what we're gonna do with you. No, we ain't gonna kill you. I ain't gonna say it again. Can't very well let you go running off back home and telling people about us either." "I won't say any—" "Save it, girl. Don't care what you promise here and now. Ain't like you'll be able to say nothing happened. Your ship's shot to shit. Can't very well go on just taking you away from your family, though, either." The woman's voice trailed off. "I don't really have any family left. Didn't really have a mom or dad, and Nana Jean died after I started school." The captain's look told Grace she knew what it was like to not have family. "All right, so less of a chance they'll send a search party." That was a bittersweet sentence, even for the captain. She would have to have a little word with Bradley about how to pick his targets better from now on. "All right, how about this? We'll get your ship set back up right as rain first off. After that, we'll see about what to do with you. I'm sure Silas will think of something. In the meantime, I can set you up with a place to sleep and maybe a small job or something." "Silas? And a place to sleep? Job? What? I just realized I don't know what your name is, Captain." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Already talking like a crewman. Name's Fiona Haswell. Silas is my husband. Helps me run this little operation." "What do you do? I mean, you're not like the pirates they told us about in school. Do you really have a giant ship that you cobbled together from all your kills? Book said it was big enough to take on a city head on, and that it was—" "Hold on there, girl. Slow down. I don't know what kind of horse shit they've been feeding you about the world, but there ain't no giant pirate ship. At least not one I've ever heard of." Fiona leaned back a bit. "I'll say they did get the piece together ship part right. Saki had been put together over the last decade." "Really? Can I see her engine room? What engine system do you use? What about weapons? What's her frame? From the supports in here, I'd say she was a Fredericks class, but it could be a Jacobs. What about—" Sorry." Grace withered under the look Fiona gave her. The woman laughed. "Nothing to be sorry for, girl. Just honestly don't know most of this shit. We got her in a trade back a long time ago. My engineer will know all that. Once we're home, I'll see if I can drag her out of her hole, and you can talk her ear off about it." "Oh, yeah, all right." There was an awkward silence as Grace ran out of things to say, and Grace's mind returned to the situation she was in. Tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered, I just want to go home. Fiona looked around the room. I can't send you back. Honestly, I don't want to send you back. Those damn ships ain't no place for a girl to be growing up. And a pirate ship is? Grace snapped. The realization of being held prisoner finally moved to anger. You shot me down. You stabbed Lenora and dragged her into your ship. You held a knife to my throat and put me in a fucking brig. This is better than my home? Than my room? Than my friends? Grace reached for the woman, not knowing what she was going to do if she managed to get her hands on her, but still trying. The captain smoothly grabbed Grace's wrist, twisting, and brought the yelping girl to her knees, arm painfully pinned to her back. Fiona's free hand drew her knife and brought it to the girl's throat. I don't want to kill you, girl. Don't mistake my hospitality for weakness. I took pity on you because I know what it's like to be lied to and because you're an innocent, but I will kill you if you don't calm yourself down. The scarred woman's voice was calm and menacing. At that moment, the ship shuddered slightly. Fiona put her knife back in its sheath and let go of Grace's arm. Come on, I want to show you something. The redhead slowly stood, her entire body trembling. What? The captain looked at her sadly. I'm sorry if I hurt you. We'll get some ice for your shoulder once we're inside, all right? Let's go. Grace trailed behind as they walked through the almost familiarly cramped halls, heading down. Fiona asked her, how much do you know about life down on the ground? The ground? A young man skirted around them, trying to hide his stare at Grace as he passed. Fiona raised an eyebrow, looking back at him. Don't you already have a girl, Jonas? The boy immediately turned away and squeaked, Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. Before running off. The captain shook her head. Anyway, on the ground, down on the surface. The girl's head slowly raised, eyeing the woman suspiciously. What do you mean, on the surface? No one's lived down there in a long, long time. Hundreds of years. Fiona's pace slowed for a moment before continuing. Girl, what do you think's down there? Water, right? I thought that's why the city ships were made back hundreds of years ago. I thought people had gotten onto them to get away from the flooding. Right, but what happened after that? Grace looked up the ceiling. Not much. The city ships became their own nations, some wars happened, and that was that. The captain shook her head, putting a hand over Grace's. No, with the floods, what do you think happened on the ground? It flooded. It's been that way since. That's why we live in the ships. Alright. Grace, that's a bunch of shit. Ain't been flooding down here for a long time. Yeah, we still got a lot of water, but there's been generations of people down here. Hell, my great-granddad founded one of the biggest settlements this side of the New Illinois. Ain't no reason to stay in those damn ships. The pilot stopped, staring at the woman. What do you mean? Can't get much clearer than that. Whatever the hell they done told you on that ship was some shit. Where do you think you are right now? Ain't landed on no city ship, I can tell you that. You're lying. You have to be. That's why we all lived. They entered what looked like a house, the captain's quarters, and came to a large door. Fiona stopped in front of it and put in a code on the small keypad. See for yourself. The door hissed for a moment before a loud click signified that it was ready to be opened. Grace hesitated for a moment before pulling the handle, letting the door swing outward. Her mind couldn't process what was before her. Outside the ship was a floor that seemed to stretch on forever. Twisting brown and green things were everywhere around them, like some horrible, gnarled hands reaching upward. Like the mountain. Yeah, we got plenty of those too. Fiona hit another button and a staircase extended and started to snake its way downward, letting Grace leave the ship. Let's go ahead and get you inside. Looks like it's gonna rain. What's rain? Fiona squinted at the girl for a moment. I honestly still can't quite tell if you're shitting me or not. Rain's water that falls out of the sky. Happens a lot down here, seeing as it's nothing but clouds. Somewhere towards the tail end of the ship, a screech of metal and hydraulics rang out. Sounds like everyone else is heading in too. They descended the multiple stories of stairs, a man striding towards them as they reached the bottom. Hey, babe, miss me? The man smiled and wrapped his arms around Fiona as he reached them, kissing her. Of course. He looked over her shoulder at Grace. Who's our guest? Funny story. I'll tell you once we're inside. Let me guess, Bradley fucked up again? Their conversation quickly dissolved into a language Grace didn't understand. She stood on the last stair, staring down at the ground. Fiona and the man were standing on it. From what she could see, the ship had landed on it. Why couldn't she bring herself to stand on it as well? Tentatively, she extended one foot towards it. As soon as she felt that it was solid, she let herself put weight on it, slowly coming off the stair. She reached down and ran her hand across it. The springy green leaves that covered it were wet. What is this? It looks like something from one of the farms, but not quite right. The man she guessed was Silas stared at her. Fiona bit back a chuckle. That's grass, girl. You really ain't been on the surface, have you? Well, shit, I'll amaze you with all sorts of things down here. Come on, let's get inside. Something cold landed on Grace's head, then another, and another, until she was being pelted. She looked at it as it hit her hands. Water. Water is really falling from the sky. I know a couple people out there are thinking, but wait, I've heard that before. Yes, you have. That is episode 1 and 2 re-recorded with my actual microphone instead of my laptop. And I'm going to re-record 3 and 4 and 5 and then add 6 into 5. And that will be the catching up on the re-recorded parts, and then after that it will be back down to brand new stuff, starting with halfway through episode 3. Diamond Club, Chat Realm, Merit Militia. Do these things mean something to you? If so, good. If not, then I think it's time to introduce you to some new shows. Tom Merritt, formerly of CNET's Buzz Out Loud and Twit's Tech News Today and Framerate, is now independent, blazing a trail of news and commentary the likes of which has never been seen. His new shows, Daily Tech News Show, Cord Killers, and Current Geek, bring you the most important bits of information in tech, entertainment, and general geekery out there. Don't believe me? Go check out an episode or two. You'll love them. Do you like watching people get screwed with? Good. Then you have absolutely every reason to watch the acclaimed magician Andrew Mayne on the premiere of his new show, Don't Trust Andrew Mayne, at 10/9 Central on January 13th. That's tonight. Go on, do it. The Hunted, Sky, falls under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 license. For more information, visit creativecommons.org. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com. Go support him. He's pretty frickin' awesome. If you've listened this far, I just want to say thank you. There's a few of you out there listening, and that's mind-boggling to me. So, thank you. Thank you for listening and hopefully enjoying Sky, and I hope that you continue to listen and enjoy. I'll do my best to keep it interesting.